introduce yourself?
Yeah, we could introduce us.
Yeah.
After naam kita.
আমার নাম Abigail.
And আমার নাম Akik. আমরা আখতা Sylheti matmu, English matmu, and Abigail's going to interview me. Abby's going to interview Anan. I'm going to interview Abby. And আমরা matmu Injil taki.
Yeah.
Kunar taki matmu.
John chapter 9.
Yeah.
Al-Hanan.
Yeah. John.
Sifara Noi.
Yeah.
Sifara.
Noi Sifara, John chapter 9, and basically we're just going to talk about John chapter 9 from the Bible, and we're going to share with you in a condensed way the story, and we'll just talk about it as we go along. And at the end of the video, Zablaf video shesh khandat shesh, we're going to have someone read the whole story in finer detail. So we'll just like share bits and bobs. Tura matmu Injil taki, okhta kitcha. And yeah, so
How's lockdown been for you?
yeah. So this is in a lockdown context. We're 2 meters apart.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been hard at the beginning, but onne aro koshto nai.
Yeah.
I'm the Farmu, Manchester Gardeno. So we're in at the moment we're in London, in Limehouse, and we're in someone's garden.
Yeah. A friend's garden.
For a friend's garden, Bandhu garden, and the sun is shining. So yeah. So how shall we start? So we're gonna retell the story, not completely, but do you have a question with me for me or?
Yeah. When you first read it or heard the
so I'm foila forsi actually forsi na I hunsi I first heard the story on the internet. So there is a website called Sermon Audio.
Yeah.
So there are lots of talks on the Bible and even different subjects.
Yeah.
And any part of the Bible you want to study, you could find a talk on it.
Oh, okay.
So I came across if I see John chapter 9 on the internet first. Okay. So I didn't read it first. I heard the whole talk.
Yeah.
And I was completely, utterly gripped by it. So that's how I first came across it.
Yeah.
So Afnikila also John chapter 9 kitcha, I guess.
I think I like listening to audio. Amar bala lage mizwala huni something.
Right.
So rather than reading, because I wasn't a very big fond of reading, but I do like reading now. Whereas when I was a child, I didn't really like reading. So foila hunchilamzala. Actually, I didn't really understand it, to be honest. I'm butchina, and a lot of time, I thought maybe the man who was born blind.
Yeah.
I thought, well, the people that were around him, especially like they already made up their mind about him, like already budnam horse the hair gunagar.
Right.
So that was quite interesting to know.
So right at the beginning of the story, the Gunagar part, who says that?
So it was the disciples.
Yeah.
You know, they quite tara isara hoisoy oh ibeta khane khana so khana ta khana khana monokoy tar guna sel lagi.
Oh yeah.
And
so there must be a reason. So that he has a disability.
Yeah.
And the disciples say to Jesus, the Guna, who sinned, him or his parents. So they want to like lay the blame on something or someone or some situation.
So how did you feel when you like?
Yeah, I did actually pick up that. I picked up. When I feel I through the talk, he was highlighting that as a thing that I felt like how did I feel? I felt like this guy is like everything is against him.
Yeah.
Like even if it is been the case, what people believe, if that's been the case, like before he was born, he was going to be blamed
Yeah.
for something that he's nothing responsibility for. So I thought,
But he was born like blind.
blind,
Like,
yeah.
So, you know, to be honest, he wouldn't have had any sins at birth.
Yeah.
But they still kind of, like the kind of the disciples and the Pharisees, they decide, like they kind of made up their mind that he was already a sinner. That's why he's blind.
Yeah.
So it just like for me, I was like, it doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah. And what was Jesus' response to that? What did he say? Can you remember?
Oh gosh.
Neither he sinned or his parents.
Like,
and this happened for the glory of God.
Yeah.
But there's something like that in another part of the Bible where a tower fell down and say, did they do something wrong? And it goes, they didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't the blame upon them.
Yeah.
So
isa hoin like tana sabi akore then tar mabafur dushnai tar betar dushnai he khana to so how then what do you think naturally people will just like think that? Did you naturally think, oh, he must be a sinner, like he must have done something wrong, or his ancestors did something wrong?
I think sometimes people do have that idea of, I don't want to name specific ideas in area, but sometimes people have that idea that because of their disability or because of the situation, there's like bad karma or something, or like what comes around goes around. I don't have that view. I believe that the world is fallen, dunya forigise and hokol guna horson. Dushi shaitan hasa and hokol guna horson. Doesn't matter, all have sin. Anything else that stuck from you from the man born blind?
I think when because they were living in like a kind of an area where there was like a synagogue where it was Jewish, you know, and I think I was struck by how the Pharisees, like the religious leaders, because they were kind of they were also being judgmental towards that man who was born blind. So so it's like it was the outlook was like, also it was not just like there were like normal people who were just judging, but it was like people in, like, for example, you know, inside the synagogue, they were also judging him. And I didn't feel, how did that make you feel, like when the Pharisees
so reading the whole story, so what's happened by now is there's a man born blind, Jesus heals him, and the people, the community couldn't believe, or they don't believe that's him. And later with the Pharisees, my thought is, when I read the whole story, I used to like giggle, or like have a laugh, or like I thought it was really comedy. Because what's happened is Jesus heals a man born blind, and there's a whole community confrontation with each other in the sense of no one believes that this is the person that he was, and the Pharisees don't believe it as well.
So the only thing that has changed is that he can see.
That's
his appearance.
Is
like still the same.
Still the same.
So
And what was the comedy? I used to have this view of it quite comedic and like funny because he is healed, and there's a question that says, "Do you want to believe too?"
Yeah.
And basically they respond with such aggression and potential violence towards him.
Yeah.
But I thought it was comedic. But reading it again, I thought to myself, I don't find it comedic anymore because it's quite dangerous for him.
Yeah.
It's like they were socially distanced from him in the sense like he's a traitor. Jesus, this person healed him on the Sabbath. The parents were scared of the situation because it's scary. Before I thought it was quite funny, but it's actually quite scary because ashole ta ma baf dorai dor lage.
Yeah.
And tare ta farsi hoi tui ho tare he boro manushone he furunai he heal hose he shajjo hose
So tarma ba federation.
ta ma baf dorai son tara dor lagse. So and he yes so
tarma ba fe like Doraison, the Pharisee.
Gio Doris lagi tara kunta hoise na.
Wow.
So I don't know how it takes a tara kunta hoise. If you want to know who healed him, ask him.
Yeah.
And he will give you the answer. So I thought it was, when I first read it, even after the sermon, I thought it was like quite funny because he's helped, but he's asked the question, "Do you want to believe too?" But I thought it was actually quite hard for him, but he's received a miracle.
Yeah.
He received grace.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve it in a sense, but Jesus has showed him love and compassion. So I feel for the Pharisees, they just want to oppose him.
They don't even recognize. From what I remember, they don't even recognize that he's the same person. The Pharisees, and so they have to call obviously the mum and dad.
Yes.
And say, "Look, is this your son?" And it's like, yeah, he's lived with me for the entire, his life.
Yeah.
So, but then on top of that, they're questioned. They're being questioned, and then because of out of fear.
Yeah.
Tara doraira.
Yeah.
Manushre. Tara ma ba fe when tarizika heboro ase he pachana heboro better. So so I just feel like a bit kind of like, I don't know. I mean they're like that scared of just the people in the synagogue. It's just
fear gripped them.
Yeah, it just seems like, well, for them it's like, maybe they are celebrating in one way because they're like, oh my gosh, my son's been healed. All these years he couldn't see and now he can see, and I mean I've got a child of my own, and if my son was born blind, and then I would, I don't know how I would feel, but I would be so overjoyed. Like amar father didn't kanatune saita fare, that I'll be like, it's a new life.
And on that thought is they didn't recognize him, and I just want to share a story that when I thought about making this video, I wanted to share this story with you and share this story with you. Is I could give you a situation where the eyes make a huge difference. So there was a situation, I was working in a cafe. I worked with someone most days in close proximity. I've seen him every day, and he wore glasses, and I recognise his accent. Quite distinctive. I worked with him every day, and like 8 hours a day. But one day he came in as a customer. I say a customer, and he didn't wear glasses, and he just happens to wear like a different jacket.
Okay.
and I was on the till, and I thought he was a different person.
Oh, wow.
Because
God.
you know when sometimes akhtarta zebla zogu shoshma finde and
Yeah.
echtin finde na,
Yeah.
they look like a different person, and maybe
Yeah.
if they wear a different jacket,
Yeah.
and I didn't recognize that person. Then
Oh,
it took a
wow.
little while to
Yeah.
recognize someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed it was the same person, but at first I thought it was someone else. But
Yeah.
just adjust. Then what came across from that story or experience is the eyes are a big feature of the face. Eyes share so much identity, face characteristic.
Yeah.
If you like get hit on the eye, if you have a black eye, it disfigures so much of the face to the point. It has so much character, like the
Yeah.
weight, shape, the color.
Even just like
Is
the eyes itself, you can tell if you really
Yeah.
you can really tell
Tell-
by if that person's happy.
Happy,
or
yeah,
sad
yeah.
or-
Yeah, the eyes. Yeah. So what's really interesting is they've seen or recognized a person only in the blind context, and suddenly he could see would look different, and
He
that's
would
why there's a
look different.
contest between it looks like him, and some say it is him, some say it's not him. So that's what's happening. But what's really interesting is when Jesus changes him, or helps him, heals him, he looks different.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, when anyone who follows Jesus,
Yeah.
sometimes, not all the time, they'll behave differently or speak in a different way, or they were doing one thing, but they stopped doing this thing now. It could be anything. And the identity is changed. And literally, in one sense, people won't recognize you anymore.
Yeah.
And Jesus...
Did you have that?
yeah, I
did you-
think I have to say I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes sometimes of the will and sometimes accident. But overall, God is still changing me. But it's like the way I think or behave, God is changing me from the inside.
Yeah.
Like the Pharisees, that they want to live on the outside,
Yeah.
and we have that interaction with Jesus. The fourth of Injilo,
Yeah.
they live on the outside,
Yeah.
but Jesus wants to change us on the inside.
Yeah.
I'm the bitre sofa hotasai. But yeah, Jesus is interested on the identity of the inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, আমার like বন্ধু হল আমার ফ্যামিলি তারা যাবলা আমি খ্রিস্টান হইছি আমি ইসারে বিশ্বাস করছি কত মানুষে হইছেন লাইক আমি বদলে গেছি yeah so তারা বুঝতে পারে না like sometimes তারা বুঝতে পারে না কেন আমি ইলাখান
সমান আমার লাখান সমান আলাখান মানুষ কইছেন বদলে গেছে লাখান not in negative, sometimes it's negative, but sometimes it's positive, but they can't pinpoint it.
Yeah.
Taরা জানে না কিতা লাগে.
Yeah, so some things change.
Sometimes বদলাই দিছে.
So just like that story, I think, like it's Jesus healed that man from not just his eyes, but from the inside, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I do feel like I've changed, like my whole kind of when I was 19, when I became a Christian and I believed in Jesus, and it has completely changed me. And I'm continually being changed by Jesus. He's given me so much life and love.
Yeah.
And does that resonate with you?
Gio, yeah, definitely. When the moment Zablami Bishashosi, আমার হায়াত আমার লাইফ বদলে গেছে আমি জানি আগে আমি গুনাহগার আর আমি জানছি আমি মরলে আমি জানি আমি কোনা যাই না but ওনে আমি জানি আমি ওনে মরলে আমি জানি আমি কোনা যাই না because আমি আমার বালা কাম করছি না আমি কিন্তু আমি বালা না আমি বালা মানুষ না আমি জানি সে আইছে আমার লাগি আর সে মরছে আমার লাগি আর ইবা চিন্তা হইছে আমি তার লাগি বিশ্বাস করি so আমি জানি ওনে মরলে আমি জানি আমি কোনা যাই না আমি ব্যস্ত যাইমু because আমি বালা মানুষ নাই হে আমার লাগি কাম করছে Isa Masih হে আমার লাগি কাম করছে he did the work for me.
Yeah.
He died on the cross.
But you recognize that you're a sinner.
Gio, আমি জানি ওনে
Like for me, like that was one of the biggest things. Like that I am not a perfect person,
Mhm.
that I will make mistakes. I have made loads of mistakes, but it's just that reassurance, that knowing that, okay, I believe in Jesus, and I know that I'm not a perfect person, but I can receive freedom in just knowing that, knowing that I am a free person because Jesus came and died on the cross for me, for my sins, for all the mistakes that I've done, and that just gives me such reassurance. How, like, does it give you?
Ami lahan akta agi ami zanina o zani monochoy o zanina monochoy ami zantsina lahan anan chesta try hortam. But one lahan ami fai ami zani. And he said shesh. It is finished. And ami shalom, salam, peace, fai isa. And hey Amar. Hey Amar and hey Amitar. And Injila khoy zegu ama ato bitre khayu nita fartonai.
That must be so reassuring. Right. I did have one more thing. So one more thing in that story was that Jesus replied to his disciples and even the Pharisees, I think, that it wasn't his sin, it wasn't the blind man's sin, that was the consequence of his blindness, and he said it was for his glory. So for people, so maybe for that time, for a time like the time that they had in the synagogue, in the community, because obviously loads of people would have been there. The whole community are talking about it. So can you imagine yourself being one of the person who's in the community, who's gone to the market square and just can you imagine yourself?
Yeah, I think it would have created such a crowd because the beggar would have been potentially. So if I was onlooking at the situation, the beggar would have been at the same place at the same time, all the time, would be known, and this commotion, and reading from the story of Jesus, Jesus is a well-known guy, a teacher, and people would have heard about him, and there's been a lot of commotion. So I could imagine maybe potentially being against him or something, or living in that time, because he's saying he's the Messiah. He's saying that basically he can heal, and he could have godlike attributes.
But then he's given, he's not just saying that he can heal, but he's doing it. He's doing it. He's there and then healing the blind man. So just imagine so if that happened in Whitechapel Market, how, I don't know, it would be oh my God.
I believe God can do these things. I think God is doing these things through people's conversions. When someone turns away from the sin and repents, they literally behave in a different way, and that the Bible teaches us that God wants us to do things. We were made holy, and also God can do miracles and healings today.
The stories really kind of had such an impact on me. Just the way there's so many different groups of people in the story. So you've got the community, the Pharisees, and then the parents, and then you've got
so many different characters. Disciples.
And the disciples, obviously, and Jesus.
Jesus,
So you know, everyone had their own different reactions,
roles. Yeah,
and
yeah.
how they kind of
Yeah.
reacted to it differently. So,
One thing, another thing that struck me is actually from that sermon all those years listened is they said the person who's speaking said he is recreating a feeling or a reminder indirectly or directly, I don't know, of Genesis. So when God creates man, he creates him out of mud, an echo.
Oh yeah, because in the story it says that Jesus picked up the
mud and uses saliva.
And he spat
like and put it on his eye, and it's like an echo of Genesis.
Yeah.
So the speaker, the person preaching, he said it's not his self. It's the magic is not in himself.
No.
It's the act of it.
Yeah.
And Jesus doing it, and it's just a subtle reminder of Genesis when God creates man. So God creates man, but Jesus is recreating him. So he's born and he's there's something. You know, there's a recreation there.
That's an interesting kind of.
God recreates. So when someone who follows Jesus, God is recreating him. So in one sense, like we are spiritually dead. Yeah. We're still alive.
Yeah.
But when we follow him, we're spiritually alive, and there's like a recreation. But I don't know how long the video is going. But, shall I say one other final thing to the camera?
Yeah.
So just to say thank you for watching, listening. Just to say, we've done this deliberately. We didn't share the full story of this John chapter 9. So in John's Gospel, New Testament, it's in John chapter 9. It's a full story of what we're talking about. We didn't share it full. There's a lot more details, and we would love it if you actually read John chapter 9 for yourself.
Yeah.
Get a Bible and read it, or find a friend who is following Jesus or believes in Jesus, someone who is a born again Christian.
It would be it would be kind of interesting
to see, because we're just sharing what we read, what we picked out. Yeah. So we've discussed it, but there's a lot more detail. I would love it for you to read it yourself. If you can have a physical book or read it with someone.
There's so many apps nowadays, you know, just type in like Bible, just type in Bible and it'll come up. There's loads of apps. I like the audio version, my Bible app, because I like listening. That's where I kind of pick things up. So and you can also read it, BibleGateway.co.
Bible Gateway, check it out.
UK.
And just in case you don't have the opportunity to read it or go anywhere, as we end our discussion, someone will be in the same video, this present video. Someone will be reading first John chapter 9 in English, and also potentially straight after the English, someone will be reading it, and then we'll have it in Sylheti. But thank you for watching, and and maybe we'll do another one someday.
This has been great.
Thank you.
Chapter 9. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him,
"Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?"
"Neither this man nor his parents sinned,"
said Jesus,
"but this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world."
Having said this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes.
"Go,"
he told him,
"wash in the pool of Siloam."
This word means sent. So the man went and washed, and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked,
"Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?"
Some claimed that he was. Others said,
"No, he only looks like him."
But he himself insisted,
"I am the man."
"How then were your eyes opened?"
they demanded. He replied,
"The man they call Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see."
Where is this man?
They asked him.
I don't know.
He said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now, the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight.
He put mud on my eyes,
The man replied.
and I washed, and now I see.
Some of the Pharisees said,
This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath.
but others asked,
How can a sinner do such miraculous signs?
so they were divided. Finally, they turned again to the blind man.
What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened.
The man replied.
He is a prophet.
The Jews still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents.
Is this your son?
They asked,
Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see?
We know he is our son.
the parents answered.
And we know he was born blind. But how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself.
His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for already the Jews had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, He is of age, ask him. A second time they summoned the man who had been blind.
Give glory to God.
They said.
We know this man is a sinner.
He replied,
Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see.
Then they asked him.
What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?
He answered,
I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?
Then they hurled insults at him and said,
You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from.
The man answered,
Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly man who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing.
To this they replied,
You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?
and they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said,
Do you believe in the Son of Man?
Who is he, sir?
The man asked.
Tell me so that I may believe in him.
Jesus said,
You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you.
Then the man said,
Lord, I believe.
and he worshipped him. Jesus said,
For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind.
Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked.
What? Are we blind too?
Jesus said,
If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains.
হযরত ঈসায় জন্মর আন্দারে পালা খোরলায় হযরত ঈসা পত্তেদি আটটিয়া যাওয়ার সময় এক আন্দা পেথারে ফাইলা সেই জন্ম থাকিও আন্দা আছিল এৰে দেখিয়া থান সাহাবি অকলে থানৰে যে খাইলা হুজুৰ ও মানুষকু খা গুনায় আন্দা অয়া জন্মিছে থার নিজ গুণা লাগি না থার মা বাপর থান জবাব দিলা থার নিজ লাগিও নাই আর থার মা বাপর গুণার লাগিও নাই থার মাজদি আল্লাহ লীলা খালা জায়ার ওয়া লাগিও ইলা ওইছে শুনো যেন আমারে বেজিছেন সময় থাকতে থাকতে থান খাম করা আমরা জরুর রাইট গনায়া আর এই সময় খেয়ে খাম করার উপায় নাই বুধরাইনি আমি যতদিন দুনিয়াত আছি অতদিন আমিও দুনিয়ার নগর অখান খয়াও ঠাইন মাটিত চাপ পেলায়া ফেখ বানাইলা বাদে ও ফেখ আন্দা বেঠাৰ চৌকত লাগায়া খৈলা যাবা চিলাৱাৰ ফুৰকিত গিয়া দৈলাও চিলাৱা মানে পাঠানি সেই গিয়া চৌক দৈলাও
আর বালা ওয়া আইলো এখান দেখিয়া আরি ফরি আর যত মানুষে তারে আগে বি খরাত দেখছিলা এরে হইলা অগু কিতা হো বেঠাই নাইনি জেগিয়ে অনো বয়া বি খরত খেয়ে হইল ওই হেই তো ও বেঠাও আর খেয়ে হইল দেখতে যদিও থার লাখান ওইলে হে নাই তেও হে নিজে হইল জিওয়ে আমিও হজন ও তারা এরে দেখাইলা হোসাইন তোমরা চোখ পালা ওইলা খিলা হে হইল ঈশা নামৰ ও মানুষে ফেখ বানায়া আমার চকুত লাগায়া হইলা যাওবা সিনেমার পুকুরের মাঝে দয়া আওগি আমি গিয়া দইলাম আর বালা ওই গেলাম তারা হইলা ও মানুষকু খুয়াই হে হইল আমি জানি না ও যে বাটা আন্দা আছিল মানুষে তারা দরিয়া ফরেশি অখল গেছে লয়া গেলা কারণ ঈশাই যেই দিন ফেখ লাগায়া তার চোখ বালা খসলা এই দিন আছিল তারা জুম্মাবার এর লাগি ফরেশি অখলে হেরবা তারে যে খাইলা তোমার চোখ বালা ওইল খিলা হে হইল হো জনে আমার চকুত ফেখ লাগায়া দিলা আর আমি গিয়া দয়াও চোখে দেখলাম ও সময় হইজন ফরেশে হইলা এই মানুষকু তো আল্লাহর গেছ থাকি আইসে না দেখায়নি সেই জুম্মা বড় মানে না ওলে সেও হইলা গুণগা মানুষে ইলাখান খেরামতি খাম করব খিলা অত্তা লয়া থারার মাঝে দলাদলি লাগি গেল তারা হেরবার ও মানুষরে যে খাইলা ঠিক আছে সেই তো তোমার চোখ বালা করছে এর লাগি তুমি তার ব্যাপারে কিতা খো হে হইলে ঠাইর একজন নবী ওইলে ও বেটা যেন আগে আন্দা আছিল আর অখন চোখে দেখা এহুদি নেতা অখালে তার মা বাপরে না যেখানে পর্যন্ত এটা এখন খরলা না তারা তার মা বাপরে যে খাইলা দেখো সাইন অগু তোমরা হো আন্দা ফুয়ানি যে করে তোমরা জন্মর আন্দা হো তে হে অখন চোখে দেখা খিলা তার মা বাপে কইলা জিওই হে আমরাও ফুয়া আর হে আন্দা ওয়া জন্মিছিল ওইলে অখন খিলা চোখে দেখা এখান আমরা জানি না সে তার চোখ বালা খসইন তাও হইতাম পারে না সেই তো বড় ওই গেছে তারাও জিখাওকা তার বেফা হে হোক তারা মা বাপে ইহুদি নেতা অখলো দরে লওয়া মাতিলা কারণ ইহুদি নেতা অখলে আগ থাকিও আইন খরছিলা সেও যদি ইচাৰে আলমচি খয়া খবল কৰে তে তাৰে সমাজ থাকি বার খৰি দেৱা ওইব এর লাগিও তার মা বাপে কইলা সেই বড় ওই গেছে তারেও জিখাওকা নেতা অখলে দুসরা বা তারে আনিয়া জিখাইলা তুমি আল্লাহর নামে হাসা মাতো আমরা তো জানি এই মানুষটা গুনাহগার সেই জবাব দিল তাইন গুনাহগার না কিতা এখন আমি জানি না খালি অখান জানি আমি আগে আন্দা আসলাম অখন চোখে দেখিয়া নেতা অখলে কইলা হোসাইন হেই তোমারে কিতা করছে তোমার চোখ কিলা বালা করলো ও বেটাই জবাব দিল আমি তো আগেও কইলাম ওলে আপনারা শুনলা না তে অখন কেনে আর শুনতা চায়রা আপনারাও তান উম্মত ওইতা চায়রানি এখন শুনিয়া তারা বেটারে খুব গালি খরিয়া কইলা হয় তুমি গিয়া অগুর উম্মত ওইসত ওলে আমরা ওইলাম মুসা নবীর উম্মত আমরা জানি আল্লাহ নিজে মুসা নবীর বাচ্চিত খরচইন ওইলে ই বেটা খুয়াই থাকি আইছে এটা তো আমরি জানিও না তাইও বেটাই কইলা কি চাট জুবি আপনারা জানেন না থাইন খুয়াই থাকি আইসইন অথচ থাইনও আমরা চোখ পালা করলাম আমরা জানি Naforman ocholo chota alai hunoina. Oile, cheu zudi allar ashik bania tan bozi zugaya sole. Te alai tar fariad hunoin. Ar ais fazonto, illa huna gesen nazan. Zonmotaki anda kunu manshur so cheu bala khose. Tain zudi allar gestaki na aita, te illa khurta falada onne. Nata ochalai tare hoila. Tar zonam oise nafor maner maze. Ar tui amradai dhalim dereni. Ochan khoya. Tara tare shomat taki ekhori khorla. Isai hunla. Nata ochalai o betare ekhori khorsoin. Tain o betare tukaya bar khoria hoila. Oba. Tumi kita bin adamoru frey iman anchuni. Hey kholo huzur, tain khe. Amare khukka. Ami zate tan ufrei eman antam fari. Isai tare khoila. Tumi tan re dekhso. Ar tainu tumar logi maktira. O betai kholo huzur. Ami eman anlam. Ochan koyao hey hodot isai stoizda khorlo. Isai khoila huno. Ami aisi I dunia pisar khora lagi. Zara anda asoin tara zanu bala oin. Ar bala okhol anda oin. O shamoy, hoizon forishio isar khamdat asla. Ekhan huna tara khwila. Tai afne kita khwita saira. Amra andani? Isai khwila. Tumra zudi anda oitai. Tai tumra kunu dushi oila nan one. Oile. Tumra khoirai andanai elagio tumra maze dush as